With the Cardinals.
Call the meeting to order.
Williams, Miller,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Flesh.
Yes. First item on the agenda this evening is a presentation from Williams Keepers LLC 2012 Audit and Financial Report. Bruce?
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. The audit is complete. The comprehensive annual financial report you have before you. Roger, you want to make any comments first, or we want to go straight to Heidi?
We can go straight to Heidi for the presentation.
All right, we'll do that. Okay, Heidi with Williams Keepers.
You'll notice the pretty cover Roger and everybody did this year is pretty impressive, so there's at least a little color in this nice big outfit. First couple of slides are just some background information on, obviously me, Heidi Chick, I'm the audit partner. The two people that worked with me on the audit, Kelly Schwartz, she's an audit manager on our governmental team, and then Amanda Schultz, she's a senior. Amanda was out here every day, and then Kelly helped me get the audit done. A little bit of information on our government team. Williams Keepers specializes, one of their specialties is governmental audits, so we do spend a lot of resources on our team making sure we keep up with stuff. So there's a slide with a little bit of our information. As a result of our audit, we actually issue 5 reports. 3 of them are required under GAAS, which is Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. Those are the auditing standards that apply to every audit that everybody does. In addition, because you get federal funds and you spend more than $500,000 in federal funds, you also have to follow Generally Accepted Governmental Auditing Standards, which is GAGAS. And we actually do think it's GAGAS, just the way it sounds. So there's 2 reports required under those government auditing standards, which is, we call it the Yellow Book, but it's a report on financial reporting, and then there's a second report on program compliance, and we'll go through those later. So 3 reports everybody in the world gets, and then the 2 reports because you had federal funds. The City of Mexico issues what's called a Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or you'll hear the term CAFR a lot. This is above what's required under Generally Accepted Accounting Principles for Government. The 2 sections that are in addition are the introductory section and the statistical section. It's basically a symbol of excellence in reporting. There's a lot of really good information in both the intro and the stats section. Stats section is really nice because it gives you trend information. It'll give you like the last 10 years of revenue, the last 10 years of expenditures, the last 10 years of a lot of different things. And it's not just financial numbers, but there's a lot of other numbers that kind of show how the city has grown and changed over the past 10 years. This is actually submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association, where it's evaluated for its completeness, its readability, that type of stuff. Your report last year received the award for excellence in reporting for fiscal year 11, 23rd consecutive year in a row, so a pretty long time you've been getting this, and we anticipate that you'll get it for the fiscal year 12 report that's in front of you. This is what it looks like. There's actually a plaque floating around somewhere, I'm not quite sure where, but that's what it looks like. And again, this is a symbol of excellence in financial reporting because anyone can go out and get a lot of really good information on Mexico from looking at your CAFR. These are the basic financial statements I've kind of listed out. We're going to touch on each one of those, but you can see there's a lot of information, and you can tell by the thickness of this, there's a lot of information, a lot of work and effort that goes into preparing governmental financial statements. And they're really kind of confusing. If you haven't seen them before, it's hard to keep straight what you're doing. So the couple things I might point out right here is there's actually 2 sets of statements that are in there. One is where it says government-wide statements. That's where you put everything in the city together in one place. So all your utilities, all your governmental funds, they all show up there. And all your capital assets are recorded there, all your debt's there. So if you go to the government-wide statements, it's kind of a snapshot of what the city looks like on a basis that's kind of comparable to a for-profit entity. That's on full accrual where everything is recorded. Then there's a second set of statements, they're called your fund financial statement. And that's where the focus, instead of being on the city-wide statements, is on the individual funds. And there's statements that cover the governmental funds, which is basically the basic services the government provides, public safety, streets, parks, all that type of stuff, where you're not trying to cover expenses that's primarily supported by taxes and revenues like that. Then there's your proprietary funds, which are your utilities that are supported by user charges, where you're kind of operating it like a for-profit business. So when you look at this, one of the reasons it's so thick is you actually have 2 different kinds of sets of statements in there. So So kind of look at this and keep this in mind. The government-wide, everything's all together, all your assets are recorded, all your liabilities, and the fund financial statements are more focused on the individual funds. Then there's notes to the financial statements. Governments are required to include certain information. I've listed there. For the most part, it's budgetary comparisons and some pension information. And then there's some extra supplementary information that's not absolutely required, but it's basically the combining schedules that shows how some of the funds and stuff are put together. So that's your basic governmental financial statements. One of the things I like to do every year is go through the auditor's report. You've probably heard me talk about this before. I think it's important because you only look at this once a year to kind of talk about what an audit is and what an audit is not. So I thought we'd walk through the auditor's report really quick. Paragraph 1 really just identifies what we audited. It identifies, we audited the city and identifies the period of time that we audited it for. It really emphasizes that the financial statements is a nice big thick book, other than our auditor's report, is your responsibility. It's coming from the transactions that you're authorized, all your account balances and things like that. We actually do the financial statements, but Roger and Vicki go through it, and Bruce has gone through it in great detail to make sure they're right. But at the end of the day, they're your financial statements. And our responsibility then is to give an opinion on those financial statements based on the audit. The second paragraph talks again about all the auditing standards that we file, the GAS, the generally accepted ones, and then the governmental auditing standards. An audit is intended to provide reasonable assurance that your financial statements are fairly stated. We don't look at every transaction. It's not 100% guarantee that everything is picture perfect in there. But what we do is we go through a risk assessment process where we gain an understanding of how things work, who does what, where risks might be, and we focus our time on where things might go wrong. If something were to go wrong, where would it go wrong? So we don't look at everything, but we go through this risk assessment process to figure out where we're going to spend the bulk of our time. And when we're done with our audit, we feel that the things that we did are sufficient for us to give an opinion on your financial statements. Paragraph 3 is actually the opinion paragraph. It's a clean opinion, consistent with prior years. It's the best one that you can get. And again, it means that your financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles. Paragraph 4 just talks about the governmental auditing standard report. Paragraphs 5 and 7 just have to do with that other information that I talked about earlier. Any question on the auditor's report? Management's discussion analysis. Now, Roger actually does write this. It's on pages 3 to 14. It's intended to be someplace everybody in the world can go and read and actually understand it. It's supposed to be in plain English, so you don't have to be a CPA, you don't have to be an auditor or an accountant to read it. And really what it does is it compares this year to last year and talks about what went on in the city during the year. It hits the highlights, why things changed, kind of what went on. So really, if you don't want to spend the time like Greg did and really read through every page in detail, this is where you want to go, because it really does highlight what happened this year, particularly in comparison to last year. And then there's some financial, some economics and other factors that you look at that kind of talks about the upcoming year. Any questions on MD&A? The entity-wide statements, remember, this is, again, citywide. Everything is all put together. All your assets are recorded. All your liabilities are recorded. It's on full accrual basis. What that means is when somebody owes you money, you provide them a service they haven't paid you yet. Like December utilities, they pay in January. That is recorded as a receivable in revenue. If someone's provided you service and you just haven't paid them yet, that is an expense and then a payable. So that's what full accrual stands for. The statement of net assets is on page 15. That's basically your balance sheet. Shows your assets, your liabilities, and obviously then ending equity. All your capital assets are recorded there. All your debts recorded there. There is a column for governmental activities, which again are those things that only government provides. Public safety, buildings there, streets, all that kind of stuff. And then the business type activities, which is basically your utilities, and then a column for everything together. Some of the things that happened this year, just in real highlight, it reflects the investment in the Missouri Science Center. There's a decrease in accounts payable compared to last year because there's a lot less construction going on at the end of this year compared to last year. There's a decrease in current assets and an increase in capital assets because you spent money on your capital projects during this year. Last year you had the money, this year you spent it. Any questions on the statement of net assets? Okay. The next entity-wide statement is a statement of activities, basically your income statement. Shows your revenues and then your expenses. That's on page 16 if you want to look at it. This year, there was a significant decrease in the grants that you had. A lot of it's just timing. You had a lot more grants last year than you did this year. In the business type activities, there's an increase in wastewater fees, so you saw some more revenue coming in, but that was somewhat offset by some of the increases in expenses that you had. So those are some of the high-level changes. Again, if you go back to the MD&A, there's a little bit more description and a better comparison of this year compared to last year. Any questions on the statement of activities? Okay, now we're going to go over to the fund statements, and again, this is where you're focused on the individual funds. And we're going to talk about the governmental funds first. And they start on page 17. These are on modified accrual basis, and really the only real difference between modified accrual basis and the full accrual that you see in the entity-wide has to do with revenue, with the receivables. So if you are owed property taxes, the county collector collects the property taxes. If you collect it within 60 days, you get it recorded as revenue, and if you don't collect it within 60 days, it's not revenue. So it's just kind of a funky governmental thing, really close, but not entirely the same as full accrual. Statement of assets, liabilities, and fund balances is the governmental balance sheet. Again, shows you assets and liabilities. There's really no significant changes compared to prior, except for the things we've already discussed. So decrease in payables, mainly because of the construction that went on last year that wasn't there this year. Page 18, if you look at it in detail, walks you from what shows up as on the balance sheet on the governmental fund statements back up to the entity-wide statements. So if you remember back on, I think it was 16 or whatever page it was, we had the entity-wide balance sheet, remember the whole city together? This page explains how you go from one page to the other. Okay. I'm not going to go through it, but if you go through it and you have any questions, let Roger or me know, we can follow through. But basically, it just says how you go from one place to the other. The biggest differences are capital assets are not recorded on the governmental fund statements. Long-term debt is not recorded on the governmental statements, but they are on the entity-wide. So those are generally the two biggest differences between the governmental fund statements and the entity-wide statements. The fund statements are focused really on short-term. They're more cash basis, short-term things that you can use to pay your next year's operating bill. So the fund statements are more short-term in focus, whereas the entity-wide is long-term focused. Statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, basically your fund income statement. Again, it reflects the decrease in intergovernmental revenue and then the capital outlay for the grants when you compare it this year to last year. And then just like the balance sheet had an explanation between the fund statements and the entity-wide, the income statement does as well, and that's what shows up on page 20. The biggest difference between a fund income statement and the government-wide income statement is depreciation expense is reported on the entity-wide, but not here. Debt service shows up as an expense on the fund statements, but not on the government-wide. So if you look at that, it'll explain what the big differences are between those two sets of statements.
And assets are not included in that, you said?
I'm sorry?
Assets are not listed in the governmental fund statements, is that right?
Capital
Doesn't spell-
assets are not,
right,
long-term
capital
debt is
assets.
not. Those are the two biggest things. Any questions on the governmental fund statements? This is where governmental accounting is really confusing. But what they're trying to do is, you know, for the most part, when you're operating your fund, it's a short-term focus on the funds. What do you got to pay your bills? What are you going to do within the next year? Whereas the entity-wide, remember, is more like a for-profit, shows everything. One thing I'll point out, and this was there last year, and I can't really see it, but there's kind of highlights. Last year there was a new standard that we implemented that basically breaks down your fund balances by what is available to you. The things that show up as non-spendable is basically what it says. You can't spend them. You can't spend prepaid expense or anything like that. You can go across it and you can see prepaids and things like that. Anything that's restricted, that's where a third party has told you you can only spend it on this. And we've got those listed for the most part. It's money that you got in that can only be used for community development or the cemetery or specific things like that. Assigned, that's where you kind of set aside money and say, we're going to use it for this. That shows up in the sign, and that's basically Parks and Rec, and then the unassigned is just available for whatever. So it just shows kind of the constraints on spending on your equity. And that was new last year, and so I just put it here just to kind of reemphasize this is the second year of it. Any questions so far? All right, if you look at the enterprise fund statements, these are much easier to understand because it's like the rest of the world. Capital assets are recorded in these fund statements. Debts recorded in these fund statements. They're really exactly like you see in the government-wide. So therefore, there's no reconciliation between these fund statements and the entity-wide because it's the same basis of accounting. The statement of net assets is on page 21. You're going to see kind of the same thing. There's a decrease in restricted cash because you did your capital projects during the year, wastewater treatment. There's a corresponding increase in capital assets due to the wastewater project. Statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund net assets, basically the enterprise fund income statement. There was an increase in rates, so you did have an increase in revenue. Operating expenses increased overall. I listed some of the categories where there were some increases. Non-operating expenses compared to last year increased because you had a lot more interest expense this year. You had 2 bond issuances, offset a little bit by prior year you had a contribution to others. So that's kind of the highlights of the changes this year. The fund statements do have a statement of cash flows, because if you remember I talked about most of these statements are on the accrual basis. So what the statement of cash flow does is it takes that accrual basis and converts it into cash in and cash out. And it classifies the cash flow according to different activities. So operational cash activities, that's what your basic operations generate as far as cash goes. Your fees offset by your operating expenses. Financing cash activities, that's kind of where you borrow money from. You know, debt would go in your financing activities. At the end of the year, there's an overall increase in cash balances. But that's basically converting their accrual entries into where you got your cash from during the year. Any questions on any of the fund financial statements? Okay. Footnotes, nobody likes to read these because they're long. Greg read them, I have to give him credit. But they are important. They are an integral part of the financial statements because, as you all know, numbers don't tell the entire story. So it's really important to read the footnotes along with looking at the numbers because it gives a lot of explanation, a lot of detail of what's behind those numbers. The footnotes are on page 24 to 46, and like I have up there, it's really key to understanding what's in those numbers. Note 1 is your accounting policies. It's pretty long, but if you read through it, it tells you how things are recorded. So if you want to know how capital assets are recorded or anything like that, Note 1 is the place to go. Pretty consistent with last year, but it is an important footnote. There's really no new standards this year, so your footnotes, when you read through them, are pretty consistent with last year, so I'm not going to go through them all. I will tell you, I've listed up here what we consider to be the key footnotes. Note 6 is on your capital assets, shows the ins and the outs, a bunch of information on capital assets. Note 7 and 8 concern your debt, and then Note 11 is your commitments and contingencies. The notes that were revised, other than just changing the numbers, have to do with Note 8, the mid bonds. We added a paragraph that talks about the default, and then on page 41, loggers, those numbers changed this year. So those 2 notes, I would look at those because those are different. There's additions this year compared to last year. But again, I know that they're long, they're somewhat complicated, but they are important to understanding what's in your financials. Any questions on any of the footnotes? Okay, we're going to flip over now over to the governmental auditing standard area. The reason that you have that is because you got federal funds and you spent more than $500,000. So this page is actually in your CAFR, but we put it up here just so that you can see where all you spent money, where the source was originally federal. And when we look at that, even though you get it through the state has to tell you where it originated. So if very back at the beginning, if it originated at the federal government, these standards apply. And when these standards apply, it means we have to do compliance auditing. We have to do a lot more than what we have to do in a basic financial statement audit. There's a burden on us. We have to get special extra education in order to do these kind of audits. We have to look at your internal control in a different way, and basically we have to do compliance auditing. That's, you can see last year you spent about $865,000 in federal funds. When you hear the term single audit, it used to be before they passed this law that every federal agency that gave you money would come out and audit you. So if you got money from 5 different federal agencies, you could be audited 5 different times at any point during the year. So you have to give the federal government credit in this case because they talked about efficiency. Normally you don't think about the federal government and efficiency, but in this case they said this is crazy. Let's just do a single audit and it's going to make all the federal agencies happy. So that's where the term came from. And anytime you spend more than $500,000 in a single year, you're required to have a single audit. The federal government specifies what we have to do when we do a single audit. It's not up to us to figure it out. The federal government tells us, here's what you have to test, and we'll follow that. There's some specific reporting required. I've got it listed there. We'll touch on a couple of those reports. Last year, in the past fiscal year, we looked at the Plant Science Center as major programs. There's two reports that I want to cover. One is on financial reporting. Under governmental auditing standards, we actually have to issue a report on financial reporting itself. It covers, and you'll notice they both cover internal control and compliance. On financial reporting, we don't actually have to test for specific compliance. So we just basically say we didn't note any material weaknesses and we didn't note any non-compliance when we were doing our financial statement audit. Obviously, that's a good thing. On program compliance, again, we don't issue an opinion on internal control, but we did not notice any material weaknesses over program compliance. So in the first one, internal control is over financial reporting, and the second report is internal control over how you operate your federal programs. We do have to give an opinion on whether or not you comply with those compliance requirements, and you had an unqualified opinion, which means you did what you were supposed to do. Obviously, again, a good thing. Any questions on those two reports? They look really similar, and they both cover internal control, and they both cover compliance. So that's why I think it's important that you realize the first one's over financial reporting, and the second one's over program compliance. Okay, that's it on the CAFR, unless anyone has any questions we haven't already answered. The assessment 14-hour day, the blue book? No, they're in here. Okay, if you go in here, there's some yellow tabs kind of towards the back. So you can kind of see the division. Next report we're going to cover is the one that says communication to the operator and city council. Everyone find it?
What page is that?
It's going to flip on the back.
We don't have that in here.
Oh, here.
It's in the blue book.
It's in the
I
blue
think
book.
it's this one.
Yeah.
This is the blue book.
Well, it's the dark blue book. How's that?
Oh, the darker one,
The
okay.
dark blue book. Okay. Two more reports to cover. This one is required for us to issue under auditing standards. It's basically a report from us as your auditors to you. You're considered those who are good governance. And so we have to do this communication. It kind of lets you know how the audit went overall. Talks again about what our responsibility is, which is really to give an opinion on the financial statements, while the financial statements still are your responsibility. We actually talk a little bit about the scope and the timing of the audits. I sent out an email at the beginning just so everyone was kind of on the same page. I'm not going to go through everything, but the highlights really are, there's no change in accounting principles during the year, no change in accounting policies that we had to deal with. Talks about significant estimates. Anytime you do something at a point in time, some things you know and some things you do your best guess of. You know how much cash you have in the bank, you know that. But some of the things that we've listed are estimates. Allowance for uncollectible receivables. You've done the utility billing, you hope you're going to collect it all, but you may not. So you're estimating how much you think you're going to collect. You useful lives of capital assets. How long are your vehicles going to last? How long is your building going to last? The fair value of contributions. The post-retirement obligations, which is the health care for retirees. That's an estimate of what that's going to be. And the post-closure costs for your landfill. So some things you know, and again, some things you estimate, so this talks about the key ones. The disclosures we consider to be neutral, consistent, clear as they can be for government. I agree that they're very detailed, but all in all, I think they're pretty beautiful. And again, we've listed some of the key disclosures, which are the capital assets, debt, commitments, and contingencies. No difficulties working with management. I think Roger and Vicki do a great job in getting ready for us, and every year things get a little bit better. They take on a little bit more, so audit went very smoothly. We take a lot of time, unfortunately, when we come out and talk to a lot of different people, and everyone always takes the time to answer our questions, talk with us, get us what we need. So the audit really goes really well. There's certain things that we are still fixing. I've listed them in there. Really not anything that's a big deal, and every year we make fewer and fewer adjustments, so I think that's a good thing. And no disagreements with management in anything in the financial statements or in dealing with anything during the audit. So audit goes really smoothly, and we really do appreciate the cooperation we get. Any questions on that report? And the last report is the management letter. When we look at doing the audit, remember I talked about earlier, we do a risk assessment process where we get an understanding of how things work. So obviously we're going to look at internal control. But we're only looking at it enough to figure out how we're going to audit you guys. We don't do enough work to actually give an opinion on your internal control. So we don't give an opinion on internal control. But if we look at things and we find some things we think you need to know about, that's what the management letter is about. So when we look at it, if we see a break in your system, we call it a deficiency. It just means either it's not designed the best or it's not operating. We have to evaluate how big a deal is it. If it's a material weakness, that means we think this break could potentially have a material impact on your financial statements. It doesn't have to have happened, but it just means it could happen, and if it did happen, it could potentially be material. That's the most serious thing that you could have, is a material weakness. In between a deficiency and a material weakness is a significant deficiency. All that means is it's not material, but we think you ought to know about it. So the things we have to report to you are things we have identified as material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. This year we didn't identify any material weaknesses, so obviously a really good thing. I can't remember if we had one last year. We did have it last year in there about financial statement prep. We took that out because we do feel Roger and Vicki are doing a great job keeping up with stuff to the point where we felt we could take that comment out this year. So the financial statement preparation that used to be in there in the prior years is gone this year. And again, that's a reflection, I think, of the hard work that the city is doing. That's it for my presentation. And Bruce told me I had 3 hours to talk. So I'm not talking for hours. But we do really appreciate the opportunity to do the audit. Appreciate all the cooperation we get while we're doing it. Any questions or anything at all? Any comments? Anything I can answer while I'm here?
So as far as you're concerned, our books and records are being kept according to government standards, and we're up to date with
I think
what we
so.
see here.
I think so. You know, I think with the addition of Vicki and some of the things that the city is doing internally, I think there's more segregation than there used to be in the past. Roger and Vicki, I think, are doing a good job keeping up on new accounting pronouncements, all the funky governmental stuff. So we work together closely. And, I mean, we wouldn't have taken that comment out if we had felt it wasn't appropriate. So I think the city really does pay attention to internal control and doing things the right way. Doesn't mean stuff doesn't happen, but you have a good system in place, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
As I mentioned to some of the council earlier, we do want to collect the books back because we do have a modification on page 28, and Heidi's going to take those back with her, make that modification, and get it back to us later this week, and then that'll be dispersed back out to council, sent to the area banks, to our library, and then a report on the HEMA system. Thank you.
Now, we referenced a wrong footnote number that Greg caught.
I didn't bring my copy of it.
I didn't either.
I didn't see it enough.
If you want to give them to
Give it to
Roger
Roger.
next time you see him.
I'll bring it in tomorrow and give it to him.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have approval of minutes. We have some minutes from our special meeting on January 14th, 2013, and I move approval of those minutes.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Botts,
Abstain as I was absent.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lesh.
Yes. Then we have some minutes from our regular meeting on January 14th, 2013, and I move approval of those minutes.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Abstain, I was absent.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lesh.
Yes. Next, we have a public hearing, and it's to rezone property located at 1101 West Monroe from I-1 Light Industrial to C2 General Commercial, and vacant parcel on North Abat, which is currently split zone from R1 Single Family Dwelling and R2 Two Family Dwelling to C2 General Commercial. I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lesh.
Yes. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor. This agenda item concerns a request from Roger Moser to rezone a property located on West Monroe, and he plans to construct a new commercial grocery store. To cover the location and the details of the request, I'm going to first turn to Rita Jackson, and Roger is also here to make some comments if need be. Probably turn it off now.
This City Council agenda item concerns a request from Roger Moser, Moser Realty, to rezone two parcels of land, which one is located at 1101 West Monroe, which is currently zoned I-1 Light Industrial, to C2 General Commercial, and a vacant parcel which is located on North Abbott, which is currently split zoned. It's from R1 Single Family Dwelling and R2 Two Family Dwelling to C2 General Commercial. The 1101 Monroe property was previously zoned C2 General Commercial until June 2011, when the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council granted approval to a request from the previous owner, Dale Gibbons, which was currently Gibbons Basement System, to rezone the property to I-1 Light Industrial. Notices were sent to 5 of the surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the 1101 West Monroe property. For that rezoning request, the city received no comments. That is the 1101 West Monroe property, which is currently I-1. Notices were sent to 68 surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the North Abbott, which are the R1s and the R2. The city received actually 5 comments based on that request. 3 of them were just asking for additional information, such as, will this increase my property? Why are you rezoning my property? Just a little misunderstanding in the information that was sent to them. The other 2 stated slight oppositions based on the fact they felt that it would bring additional traffic into the area and drainage problems to the area. The additional traffic, actually, the grocery store would actually, on the I-1 property, would face Monroe, so it would not take it into the North Abbott type property. And as far as the drainage problem, the developer does have to submit site plans, and to get a permit, all of those questions will have to be answered. Mr. Moser has indicated that with the successful rezoning of these 2 parcels, and in addition to an existing piece of property that he owns, which is currently C2, which is actually 1205 West Monroe, and it is currently C2, he would like to construct a commercial grocery store. A grocery store, which is retail store, actually can be in a permitted use of a C1, which is local commercial zoning, and it permits as a permitted use into a C2 zoning district. The reason for the request for the C2 general commercial is to avoid spot zoning, and would be consisting with the adjacent property owners, which is located around the area. At the January 8, 2013 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the commission made a recommendation to make a motion to the council to grant approval of the request. Section 15393 of the city codes requires that permanent screening consisting of such items as masonry walls, a wood fence, seated berms, or a combination of the three be installed within the area with at least 6 feet in height, and this must be installed by the developer because it would be adjacent to one of the R1 zoning districts. Staff recommends that council proceed with the advertised public hearing. We do have Mr. Moser here in the audience, which he will actually go over his plans for the request.
Well, let me say, I'm here to take the questions. I don't know what to say. I'll answer them.
Well, welcome to Mexico. And,
Thank you.
And I guess what type of screening do you think you will be constructing? Is it going to be a wood construction to separate it from the R1?
We'll do whatever's necessary.
Okay.
The civil engineer he'll submit a plan that will be acceptable.
Okay.
If it isn't, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
might
Roger.
note, and
Or excuse me.
Mr. Moser may not even be aware that his engineer contacted our office to begin the process of the application on the stormwater management for the site, which will address the drainage issues that were mentioned in some of the public responses Rita got. And we've scheduled a meeting with his engineer for later this week, and so that process is underway and will be taken care of.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Doesn't look like we have any questions for you. Thank you again.
I'll just try to earn your business.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments, public comments, since this is a public hearing? Anyone like to make any comments? Councilman? Any comments? Okay, I move we close the public hearing.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lesh.
Yes. Next on the agenda, we have new business resolutions. Bill number 2013, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for purchase of real estate with Matt Mag Holdings, LLC, Pearl Motor Company, Incorporated, and George and Linda Huffman and Audrain County Commission, and this is up for reading and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. As the title states, that this resolution would authorize myself to enter into this contract for the purchase of real estate. As the council is aware, negotiations have been held regarding this joint purchase of property. It is also with Audrain County Commission in the City of Mexico. The City of Mexico has negotiated to purchase what we're calling Tract A for $90,000, and the map is up there. And what Tract A basically says is what is known as Pearl Motor Company, which would be on the north side of Love Street. Now, as you realize already from the map, that the city does own, in essence, about 3 lots currently right there, which is our parking lots. And so this would adjoin all of the property that we currently own as well. The Audrain County Commission has agreed to purchase what they call Tract B, which would be the south side of the property, which would be where the current Pearl Motor building is located at. The contract outlines that the City of Mexico will make the deposit in escrow the sum of $45,000 on or before September 30, and will pay the remaining balance of $45,000 upon closing of the transaction. We anticipate the closing to take place roughly in October of this year. What this is allowing us to do is to split it over 2 budget years. Therefore, we are hoping we may not have to make an adjustment in the budget at all by using current funds and then budgeting in next year for the closing amount. As it is stated that at the closing, any of the typical costs associated would be addressed, and what I mean, what is meant by most of this is as far as any of the title insurance and so on, which is typical to be paid by seller and so on, is being done. There is a couple of things I think I should notice, that there was an appraisal done on this property. That appraisal is being paid for by the county and the city, and that the appraisal amount is the amount that was negotiated as far as the price. It is also commented in the contract that we would be conducting a phase 1 for environmental purposes, and that that cost would be ours, but if there is any cost of cleanup, that would be borne by the seller. The contract you have before you, if you have any questions about the property in question, we would try to answer that. Staff, at this point then, I would recommend that council proceed with the reading and passage of the attached resolution so that we can enter into the contract to purchase the real estate from Matt Meg Holdings, Pearl Motor Company, George Linda Huffman, and in a joint purchase with Audrain County.
Questions? Comments?
Where are we doing? Where is the $50,000 coming from?
Okay, currently, in this budget year would be $45,000. We currently have $50,000 in capital projects of work that we were proposing to do. We could take a look at not doing some of that work this year and make this, in order to make this purchase. Some of that work we've talked about would be, tuck pointing this building, to doing some additional interior and exterior painting, things like that we could hold off on in order to do this purchase, or we could amend and include this.
And, first I apologize for being late, and I'm a little sick, and I really didn't think I could sit through that whole presentation earlier, so I do apologize for that. The question I've had since last time, since we were here, and I have a unique perspective because I deal with lots of people every day. They want to know why we want this property. And I hear we want it for City Hall, and I hear we want to do this and we can do that, but we don't have any firm plans, do we?
I can answer you from my point of view of the whys, and I would certainly comment, at least in my opinion, as I think you already know, is that an opportunity buy that presents itself currently, that the property is available for a good price. And if you recall that in the lots that we do own, the north lot did have a home on it not that long ago that we had to purchase, tear down, and pave the parking lot, and spent almost $40,000 just for the one lot. This is already paved, lit, and so on. We do need additional parking for this building currently. As far as future use, this would obviously control whatever future use that would be from a development point of view. If prospect came by that we wanted to look at, or it does provide us that opportunity in 5 to 10 years if this building is aging and we have to look at it at some point. Doesn't say we have to do that, but at least gives us that option.
Interesting proposition. I think this is one of those times where you vote. Let me tell you, people, one of the things I heard this weekend was we just 6 months ago told everybody we were broke. We needed a sales tax. We were going to shut parks down. We didn't have any money. I heard that a lot this weekend. Now we've got $90,000 for a parking lot that I can see some personal use 5 or 10 years down the road, but it doesn't. Is it really worth 5 or 10 years to lay it down there, especially when we have issues behind closed doors that could really jeopardize a lot of things? I don't know, but I can't go with that. I know I'd probably be the only lone one, but I just figured I'd put that out there for people to know why I'm going to vote no.
Well, I think it's a rare opportunity that we would have an adjacent property like this that's priced properly and already has income-producing property on it to help offset expense. It does, you know, we in the past haven't hesitated to build spec buildings or go into debt for economic development projects, or not go into debt, but anyway, to help with economic development projects. This has that potential also, in my mind. So I see a multi-use situation here that I don't believe is overpriced. And, you know, push came to shove, we could probably sell it for that and be out nothing, or maybe more, sell it for more. But at any rate, I think it's an opportunity we shouldn't pass up.
Don't have any comment at this point.
Well, the city hall is getting old, and we're in a location that I think is helpful to the people of Mexico for downtown as far as access to it. And you're not going to find any property that's going to be any cheaper, any closer than what you got over next door. It'd be a lot better if the cars came with it, but
Mayor, I was just going to say that in 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or whatever time frame, if there was a need for the city to build another building, we would probably end up going out and paying twice what we're paying for this. It does seem to me to be a good opportunity. There would be no financing involved. It would be paid out of budget, so we wouldn't incur any interest payment. I really understand what Councilman Williams was saying, that I think this is an opportunity that we need to take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. This is a forward-looking decision, and sometimes you have to just step out there and do it, even though the timing may not be proper. I do remember something that one of the county commissioners told me about 6 months ago, and that was the fact that when they built the jail here in Mexico, and as you know, it's out on the east part of town, that they were looking for property in the downtown area and couldn't find any. And they wished that they had looked at that earlier to be able to find property. So here's an opportunity for us to latch on to some property at a price that's really, really good. And if you saw the appraisal from 2007, you would know what I mean, because it's significantly lower than it was in 2007. So I think this is a great opportunity for us for our long-term growth. And if we don't use it for that, it's also an economic development opportunity. So anyway, that's my thoughts, and I agree with some of the other comments that's been made. Any other comments? I guess we're ready for the reading then.
I'm making a motion to read bill number 2013-4.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Botts,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Yes.
Bill number 2013-04, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of real estate with Matt Mag Holdings, LLC, Pearl Motor Company, Incorporated, and George and Linda Huffman and Audrain County Commission. Whereas the City of Mexico and Audrain County Commission wishes to enter into a contract for purchase of real estate to purchase tracts and land located in downtown Mexico. And now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mexico, Missouri as follows. Section 1, that the city manager be authorized to enter into a contract for the purchase of real estate with Matt Mag Holdings, LLC, Pearl Motor Company, and George and Linda Huffman and Audrain County Commission. A copy of the contract is attached here too and marked as Exhibit A. Section 2, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after the time of its passage.
Passage.
I move for passage of bill number 2013-04.
Williams,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Botts,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Flesch,
Yes. Bill number 2013-07, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Audrain County Historical Society to assist in providing services to citizens. Now, this is up for reading and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor, this is the annual appropriation, and to cover the details, I will turn to Roger Haynes.
As Bruce mentioned, this is the annual appropriation out of the general fund. The attached resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Audrain County Historical Society to assist in providing services to citizens and the community. The 2012-2013 budget allows for the City of Mexico to contribute to the Audrain County Historical Society the sum of $4,900 for the use in providing programs and activities. The city has provided assistance to the ACHS since 2000. Since 2002, the contribution level has remained the same at $4,900. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the council may have, and staff does recommend the City of Mexico and the Audrain County Historical Society enter into an agreement, and that council give reading and passage to the attached resolution.
Dana is here.
Okay. And we do have, of course, the director of the Historical Society with us this evening, Dana Keller. Yeah, we might have any questions for her. Any comments you may?
We appreciate the support.
Thank you.
This is the same amount that we've been doing since 2002, is that correct?
That is correct.
Make a motion to read bill number 2013-7.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Botts,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Flesh,
Yes.
Bill number 2013-7, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Audrain County Historical Society to assist in providing services to citizens. Whereas the City of Mexico recognizes the many benefits provided by the Audrain County Historical Society to citizens, and whereas the City of Mexico acknowledges the need for the programs and activities, and whereas the City of Mexico and the Audrain County Historical Society desire to enter into an agreement to continue to provide these services, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mexico, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the city manager is hereby authorized to execute an agreement with the Audrain County Historical Society to assist in providing services to citizens. Agreement attached hereto and marked as Exhibit A. Section 2, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after the time of its passage. I move for passage of bill number 2013-07.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Botts,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Flesh,
Yes. Okay, the next we have is bill number 2013-8, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Prairie Pine Quilt Guild for requesting funding for the from the Mexico tourism tax. This is up for reading and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor, I think the title kind of describes what we're doing, but I will turn to Roger once again to cover the commission's recommendation and the amount they're requesting.
Council, the Tourism Commission Board did meet this month to review an application from Prairie Pine Quilt Guild for advertising support in the amount of $908. The Prairie Pine Quilt Guild did not request funds in the previous fiscal year, but did request funds the prior 2 years before that, and were awarded $400 each time. This event, in looking at the application, is to be held on the dates of April 12th and 13th, and they are looking to expand their event and lease out actually, or rent out the 4-H Center so that they can put more of the event under roof and add vendors to the 2-day event, and hopefully draw even more people to the community to participate. In the past, they've had attendance in the range of 350 to 400 people, which end up, of course, shopping and buying their food in town and putting money back into our local economy. Staff recommends that council concur with the Mexico Tourism Commission's recommendation to proceed with reading and passage of the attached resolution. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to read bill number 2013-8.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lush,
Yes.
Bill number 2013-8. See if I get this there. Y'all did. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Perry Pine Quilt Guild for requested funding from. That's almost.
Which organization?
From the Mexico Tourism Tax. Whereas the Mexico Tourism Commission recommended the City Council that Prairie Pine Quilt Guild be allowed to receive tourism funding for the tourism advertising campaign. Thank you, Ron. Now therefore be resolved by the Council of the City of Mexico, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the city manager be authorized to enter an agreement on behalf of the Prairie Pine Quilt Guild for tourism funding. Section 2, this resolution shall be in full force effect from and after its time of passage. I move for passage of bill number 2013-8.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lush.
Yes. Under new business ordinance this evening, we have bill number 2013-9, an ordinance rezoning property located at 1101 West Monroe and North Abbott, and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to C2 General Commercial. 2 readings by title only and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor, we held the public hearing earlier this evening from the request of Roger Moser for the grocery store to be located at this property. So unless council has any additional questions or comments, staff would recommend council proceed with the 2 readings by title and passage of the attached ordinance.
Your Honor, I move for first reading of bill number 2013-09.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lush.
Yes.
Bill number 2013-09, an ordinance rezoning property located at 1101 West Monroe and North Abbott, and amending the district map referring to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri zoning to C2 General Commercial. I move for second reading of bill number 2013-09.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lush.
Yes.
Bill number 2000-1309, an ordinance rezoning property located at 1101 West Monroe and North Abbott, and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri zoning to C2 General Commercial. And Your Honor, I move for passage of bill number 2013-09.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lush.
Yes. Under other business this evening, we have the claims. Are there any questions on the claims?
Make the motion to pay the claims.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Lush.
Yes. Under comments, we have council comments. Councilman Bott.
I'd just like to commend Roger and Vicki and Bruce for your diligent work with reporting, well, whatever all that stuff is that you do. It sounded awfully good when she said it, whatever she said. But I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and I understand from her that you're getting better every year, so I guess perfection's right around the corner.
I would also like to say good job. Even though I wasn't here for the presentation, I think you know I read it. So one of the ones, the numbers, I love the numbers. So excellent comments they wrote in the pamphlet. Yeah, the numbers all look great, so good job. Another great year. Thank you.
Good job. Excellent job. I was happy to see that the pawn shop is gone. That made it look a lot better on that corner. And 75 degrees, and we had a city truck running around the snow pile in front of it. That looked good. It was encouraging the snow come on back.
Well, I talked to Roger earlier, and I want to, again, tell you how much I appreciate what you do, Vicki, and of course, Bruce. I'm sure you do something.
I watched them do it.
But I did spend the weekend reading that CAFR until my eyes bled. And I
like
do think
numbers?
I got a better understanding of it. I think you wrote it in the parts of it that you write, I think were excellent, well done, and very concise and to the point. So thank you very much.
I want to say the credit goes to those two for the work that they do on that, by the way. One thing you may have noticed a little different on the agenda, you notice this little box on the back page? That means now if you have a smartphone or whatever, you can come up here to the agenda now, and you can hit that. That's smarter than I am. But then you can download the packet. You can sit out there and you can actually join along and watch the packet and read the packet off your smartphone, I guess, now. So, again, I'll stay with the paper. I'm a dinosaur on that. But anyway, that's available now.
Anything else, Bruce?
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, I would say that the last line on there told it all on the audit, and that was no deficiency this year. And last year we had that qualified whatever was the deficiency about segregation of the reporting and all that. So, see, that was great improvement. Great job to all of you. Bruce, could you give us a little status of our municipal judge?
Yes. As I think you know, we reported back in December that our municipal judge had resigned, and but that she was going to continue with us. Nicole was going to continue with us until the 1st of March, or we had a replacement. So she is actually still with us and still doing the job. We have placed the ads, and the deadline for applications is the 31st of this month, so that's coming this week. We've received a number of good applicants, and so we hope that we'll be able to sort through those and make a decision fairly quickly in order to be able to meet her timeline as far as being done March 1.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have public comments. Are there any public comments? Yes.
I just quickly wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to work with the city on the comprehensive plan. As you know, we met for several days the week before last, and I'm just super enthusiastic about it and just appreciate Bruce and Rita's work and their diligence, and Chris in making sure that we've got a good team. And I feel like this is our chance that we have a plan that's going to be not only a plan in writing, but a plan that we can implement. And I think that we're on a really good track. And I'm sure that you all have, but if there's anybody here that has not been to envisionmexico.org, there's an opportunity for you to participate in a survey that will be part of the gathering process. So once again, I just have really enjoyed that process, and I just feel super good about the group that we have working on it, and I think that you're going to see big things from us as a community, and also it will extend outside of Mexico. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dana.
Dana, I'll say thank you to you too, because you've been a great host. You've done a lot to make this happen. So don't undersell yourself. A lot of it's you too.
Any other comments? Seeing or hearing none, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Dodds,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.